Ron Olson, the Chief of Parks and Recreation at the Michigan Department of Natural Resources. Ron, thank you very much for joining us here on the MegaCast. Good to see you.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity.
Well, thank you very much. So, oh my goodness, hang on, I got to take a breath. That was an awful lot to do there a moment ago. A big, huge, massive sigh of relief that the parks are going to be open for the 4th of July. You got to be thrilled.
Oh, yeah, it's great. It's good to take another step forward in the evolution of things. Our state parks have been open all along, but with restricted opportunities and services, of which included camping, and now we're at a point yesterday where we've reopened the campground, so we're getting closer to operating more normal than we have over the last 3 months.
All right, well, who knows what, forgive me, but who knows what normal is anymore? I mean, they say the term, the new normal, but I mean, normal is whatever we make it now. And when you say normal and more normal, does it mean that you can pull into a campsite, you can use all the facilities that we have used in the past? Is it pretty much business as usual for Michigan campers?
Yeah, the facilities and the things that people are used to coming to support camping and lodging are all open, and all of those sorts of things. The types of things, though, that have been curtailed is we're still don't have large groupings of picnic tables and things like that, so that we can ensure the social distancing, which is still required of people when they visit and go out and about and outdoor recreate, whether it's at a beach or trailhead or or whether they go biking or what have you, or launching a boat or fishing and those sorts of things. So, and then, bringing their proper sanitary sanitation types of things like gloves and sanitizers and their masks, so that they can comply with the rules regarding that. But aside from that, the normality of facility availability and things like that are more normal than they have been.
Ron, will the parks limit how many people actually have access? Like, if let's say it's noon and you've already reached a certain amount of people per park, will they then turn people away?
Well, that is driven by the number of cars that come into the parks. We've had to close a handful of the parks periodically because of they had exceeded the parking capacity. And so what we've tried to do is when we hit like near 80% full, we will start the process to close down temporarily until people leave, so that we don't end up having illegal parking and too much congestion. But as far as people coming that may already be there, such as campers and things like that, they're fine. It's just that most of it's driven by day use and the dynamics of the facility that we have. We have a few parks that are very popular day use venues, and so that's what's caused some of the temporary closures.
Will there be certain areas that people will be required to wear a mask?
Yes, any indoor space that they go into where the public has access to, they would be required to wear a mask and keep social distancing. Now, we do have shower buildings that in the newer facilities that we have that have more family shower rooms, and of course those are designed for small family type of activities and things like that, so that they can be accommodated in that regard. But that's what would be required. And then if people feel comfortable outside, they're still encouraged, if they come near people for some reason, that they should be wearing a mask. But the clear deal outside is to ensure the social distancing is maintained.
I'm just sitting here, Ronnie, trying to figure out how I can make a s'more and get that, marshmallow dripping with marshmallow ooze and chocolate and graham cracker and put it all together and then with a mask on. You're going to have to lose the mask at some point. But
well, of course, people are eating their food or desserts and all the s'mores, etc. Certainly that's the case, but people will be on their campsites and they'll be with their group, so that should be just fine. Obviously, sometimes the behaviors of groups are people have other folks that gather around campfires, and that's something that will have to be managed differently than people are used to, because we would expect, particularly if they're not part of your household, family, etc., that social distancing is still something that would be required. So, yes, that'll be a difference in that kind of regard.
Well, we're doing such a good job here in Michigan, keeping the curve very flat. We don't want to screw it up on the 4th of July. Ron Olson, Chief of Parks and Recreation Division, the Michigan Department of Natural Resources, is with us. Ron, I've had a chance to travel around the state, probably more than most in my capacity as a reporter, and in doing so, I have observed the terrible problem we're having with erosion at many of the waterfront campsites and waterfront marinas and facilities that the DNR administer. It's just got to be a big problem for you, and I wish you the best in coping with it. But even like in northern Michigan, Fisherman's Island State Park, one of the most beautiful parks in the state with campsites right in Lake Michigan, a lot of them have suffered terrible erosion, Ron.
Yes, yeah, it's disheartening. We just saw some reports this morning that right now Lake Michigan, for example, is projected to be up 2 to 4 inches from what it was last year. Although by fall, they say that the numbers regarding the projections are going to start to drop because of the dry weather. The amount of escalation in the water levels has flattened out some, but it's still high and difficult even at that regard, because the last couple of years have been more and more challenging. But we have parks like East Tawa State Parks that the day use is flooded, and most of the campsites are flooded and unavailable. But also the other key that a lot of people don't think about, and that is the groundwater level. In a lot of the parks, particularly in areas near the big lakes, the groundwater is very high, and so therefore the ground is very saturated and makes it difficult to drive a camper or some heavy device over the gravel roads and things like that. So there's a lot of combining things, plus definitely the erosion and the loss of beaches and all of those sorts of things that have curtailed a lot of and impacted a lot of areas.
Well, we'll let people know that if they go to campsites around the state of Michigan and they're at areas that are affected by it, they may see areas that are not available. It might have nothing to do with social distancing. It might be more a result of just the physical condition. Finally, Ron Olson, I appreciate you being with us, Chief of Parks and the Recreation Division, Michigan Department of Natural Resources. We call you the DNR. Ron, finally, reservations. So 4th of July weekend, I'm sure things are going to be booked up, especially with the pent-up demand of the beginning of the camping season being not available. Not only campsites, but boat slips around the state of Michigan. I assume you want people to make reservations online.
Yes. People, as many people know, you can book 6 months in advance. Obviously, now we're into the season, but there's still campsites available scattered around, and we encourage people to look for them. This weekend, for example, will be about 92% occupied, and we suspect that'll be even greater over the 4th of July. But the amount of reservations is escalating. We started out yesterday at about 45%, and so that will gradually increase all during the week, and by the weekend it'll be up over 90. So we know the demand is clearly there.
All right, Ron. Well, thank you very much for being with us. We wish the best to you and the people at the DNR. We know you're doing a great job getting everything ready, and thank you so much for making it happen for us for our big 4th of July. I don't know what 4th of July in Michigan would be without our parks open. I'm glad they're going to be open, and I know our listeners here in the Oakland County area where we've been affected by COVID-19 to a greater degree than anyone else virtually in the state of Michigan are going to do their best to wear their masks, keep their social distancing, and we'll all do a great job on this 4th of July weekend. Ron, thanks for being with us.
Great. Okay, thanks for the opportunity.
All right, he is Ron Olson, the Chief of Parks and Recreation, Michigan, Department of Natural Resources.